All right, we are back here on the Iona Athletics podcast. Joining us in the studio today was not an athlete, it's not a coach, it's one of the voices of Iona Athletics. If you watch the games on ESPN Plus, you'll hear this guy a lot. It is the great Austin Stellato is on the podcast with us today. Austin, how are you?
I'm doing well, Mike. Thanks for having me on. Excited to be here.
Excited to be here, too. And my two-time broadcast partner on men's soccer games.
That's exactly it. And 2-0 in those games are Iona.
Yeah, we should let Coach Hamilton know next year. Say, hey, put Mike and Austin on the broadcast with Ian. The three of us are an undefeated team.
Yeah, right now 2-0. I mean, I'm sure they'll take that any day of the week. A good game on Saturday too.
It was a good game on Saturday. We actually called the first round playoff win over Ryder. Nice to see Iona get off the schneid there.
Yeah, 6 straight. Ryder had beaten Iona, and Iona finally getting out to an early lead, a 2-0 lead, and they were able to hold serve in the second half. Really exciting game, and they're moving on.
Yeah, you actually want to hear a funny story.
I would love to hear a funny story.
We were actually talking about this when we were pitching you for the Athletics podcast, talking to our friends John Stanko and Jack Clark, and they said when you went into the office last year, 2 years ago, to say you wanted to help out, that when you walked out, they and Steve Kultzo basically said, that kid's going to be special. So
wow, that's actually something I have not heard before. That makes me feel really good. Those are people, especially the likes of Stanko and Steve and Jack. Those are people that I've looked up to over the past couple of years. So that's a pretty cool story.
Yeah. So let's go back to that, May. What made you decide, I'm going to walk in this office and say I want to help out with the games?
Well, I think it started my freshman year here at Iona, which was back in the fall of 2017, and just through a mutual friend, I was looking to get more involved in just sort of media stuff and communication stuff on campus here. I was involved with a couple of the other campus organizations, but they suggested maybe to try to help out with the ESPN3 productions. So they sent me Steve Kultzo's email. I reached out to him, and I helped out with one game, and then they basically asked me what my main interests were. And even though I was a freshman, I was like, well, if I'm going to be honest, like my main interest is being on air, and I recognize that, maybe I'm a freshman and I won't get that opportunity, but like those are my, that's what my interest is in. And then that was my first semester, and then second semester came around and got an opportunity to be on the air.
Yeah, so what was the first game you called? Do you remember that?
So the first game I was doing, I was the analyst doing the color commentary with Jonathan Stanko on a women's basketball game between Siena and Iona. Siena won the game. I don't remember the exact score, but that was a very fun game. It was very, I was definitely a little bit nervous because it's something I hadn't done before. But yeah, that was the first game, women's basketball, Siena versus Iona. I'll never forget it.
Did they let you do the interview after the game? Usually the analyst does the interview on those.
Yes, I did do. I'm pretty sure I did the interview. Siena had a really good player that year. Forget her first name. Her last name was Scarborough. And she had like 20-something points, and Siena won. But so I did do the post-game interview. Yeah,
so that was a fun interview, I bet.
Yeah, no, it was. I was definitely nervous because what do you like? I didn't know exactly what to ask. Like, the game stuff. I think I was more nervous for the interview. I'll say, because then it's just me on the camera. It's just me and who I'm talking to is my first ever one. And it's somebody that I didn't know, some Siena women's basketball player, but I think it all went well. And it was definitely that game and those first couple of games I did, definitely a big learning experience.
Okay, so obviously you've done women's basketball. Like, what other sports have you called for us?
So any game that we have through ESPN3 or ESPN Plus, I've done. So women's basketball, softball, lacrosse, men's and women's soccer, and volleyball. I'm pretty sure that those are it, and I've helped out with the men's basketball broadcast as well. But yeah, so pretty much any sport that we broadcast here, I've been on the call for.
Yeah, for those who wonder about why he doesn't call men's basketball, it's sort of a thing where like they do bring people in to do men's basketball, but he has been on the sideline report for men's basketball.
Right. Yeah. So I have done sideline for a couple of games, and let me tell you, that is a very fun experience to just be a part of that broadcast crew for a men's basketball game, because men's basketball games here at Iona, they're just, I think you and I would both agree, they're just something different about those games, especially last year. Like, that was the first year I did sideline. It was this past semester, so back in this past winter, and obviously that was a very good team. And both of the games that I did 2 games on sideline. Both of them were very good games. One of them was a Quinnipiac-Iona game that went down to the wire. Quinnipiac won that one. And then the second game I did was Senior Day versus Canisius, and got to interview Ricky McGill after his Senior Day performance where he dropped 30 points, and that was a really fun day.
Yeah, have you had a chance to speak to Coach Cluse yet or no?
This season?
Or in general?
Yeah, so I've had opportunities to interview him. I've seen him around like the Heinz Center every now and then. Like, I'll say hello, how are you? Really, it's very insightful to listen to him talk basketball and to talk about his team, especially last year, just because of how far that team came a year ago with all of the new players that were added last year, to see them come together and just sort of his thoughts. When I was able to ask him down the stretch and then into the MAC tournament, he's just one of the brightest basketball minds I think you'll ever see.
Yeah, for sure. And let's take men's basketball off the table for a second, because you don't actually do like direct play-by-play on those or color commentating. So, of the other sports, which one's your favorite to call?
My favorite sport to call? That's a tough one. I think it's kind of changed over the years. Like last year, I probably would have said women's basketball, just because now like I've followed the women's basketball team for 2 seasons, and I love doing the women's basketball games. But I was a baseball guy growing up, and I really love Iona softball. Like, I love the pace of the play. Like, I really love how they play. I really love how the Iona softball team plays. And so honestly, like I let me just first off say I love every sport that I call, and I think it's such a great opportunity that I have been given to be a part of all of these broadcasts through all these different sports. But if I had to pick a favorite, I'd probably have to go either women's basketball or softball. But lately, soccer's been creeping up there. Soccer games have been a lot of fun to call as well.
Yeah, and the ones you called this year, I mean, the women's team, I think, won 3 in a row that you called. The men's team, we had the dramatic win over Ryder. You had that Niagara game where Lenny Lopez scores. The 2 we called, they happened to win, so that was a good.
Right,
one.
yeah. I've had some exciting. There's been some exciting games this year, and I, as a broadcaster, all I hope for is an exciting game. That's what I want. I want a close game. I want an exciting game. And I've been fortunate that this fall season, I've had quite a bit of those.
Yeah, and you obviously, it's better when you do it with a partner. But there have been times, I remember last year, especially during lacrosse season, a couple times you had to do it by yourself, be both the play-by-play guy and the color guy. How was that?
So I actually first started doing games by myself last year with soccer.
Yeah.
Soccer and volleyball, I started out doing some games by myself, and I guess to describe it in one word is it's a challenge. It really is a challenge to fill up that time by yourself, especially with sports like soccer and like lacrosse, because they are long games and there's a lot of dead air time that you need to fill in those sports, where when you have a partner, it's easy. You can just work off of each other. But when you're by yourself, you have to kind of work off of yourself. I guess what I will say about it is it is definitely difficult. It is a challenge, but I'm one who really likes a challenge. And, when I saw that I would be doing those games by myself, it, made me prep even more, like store some stories in the back pocket where, whip them out when I needed to. But it's definitely an experience, and it's very rewarding, and it's very tiring.
Yeah, it definitely is very tiring. I imagine you probably needed like some tea after those games.
Oh, 100%. Especially the lacrosse games early on in March when it's still 40 degrees outside. You got to bundle up there, especially on top of the press box.
Yeah, people don't realize this. When Austin's calling the soccer games and the lacrosse games, he's standing on top of that press box at Mazzella Field, and the wind up there whips around, and like if you're not bundled, you're gonna be freezing very quickly.
Yeah, even though it's really not that highly elevated, the wind just swirls around up there, and it'll get you if you don't dress appropriately. Yeah,
when we called the soccer game, I think back on November 10th, there was a kid who showed up without a windbreaker. I sent him home and said, "Hey, you need to go bundle up. You're gonna be cold up here."
Yeah, and I mean, good thing you did. I remember I brought my big pea coat because I knew I was gonna need it.
Yeah, I had the good old leather jacket that day, so that worked out very nicely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so most of the time though, you're with a partner, and your most frequent partner has been our friend Ian Sachs, who fellow Iona graduate. He tends to do a lot more of the analyst role when you're on, so you guys have a good chemistry. What goes into that magic? I just feel like, we work so well together.
I think that's a very good question. First off, it's something I really haven't thought of before. I think Ian and I think we have similar mindsets when we're doing games, and I think just naturally the way I'm doing play-by-play or he's doing color, or even when the roles have been switched, I think we just have a very good rapport with each other. We're able to pick up and off of each other very often throughout the broadcast. And I think also is that we like to have a lot of fun, and we have a lot of fun when we're on the air. And I think that's a big part of what goes into us sounding so well together and creating that magic that you mentioned. Because at the end of the day, we need to have fun out there. Like that's, the people on the playing court or the field, like, they should be striving to win, but also having fun. And there's no reason why we can't be having fun as well. And I think just the relationship that Ian and I have built up over the past year or so has also contributed to that. I think of Ian as one of my better friends.
Yeah, and it helps a lot for the audience watching home too, because you can tell like if they don't want to be there, it's not as fun. But like you guys want to be there, you're having a blast. I mean, we've had times where you got in the truck and said, "Give us a word to incorporate into a broadcast," and that's always been fun.
Yeah, exactly. Again, it's all about having fun and having fun not just with Ian next to me, but also like everybody else in the truck, the people on the cameras. Because you have the two teams playing, and then you have the broadcast team, and that encompasses everybody, and everybody should be looking to have a good time. That's the way I see it, at least.
Yeah, I also want to go back to like your moment that we started off this segment with, which was you got to do the radio call of the MAC title game last year, the men's title game with Ian, and you got the call that made WFAN afterwards the back-to-back MAC championship. So what was that experience like going with the crew from Iona up there to help out at the MAC championship and then call the game?
So it was really, the entire weekend was such a great experience. You mentioned I was up there technically working for the MAC for the first two or three rounds of the tournament, for the first, second, and third rounds, just doing, I was a PA production assistant, just helping out. And then once Iona advanced to the finals, they had asked me if I was going to be around to do the radio call, and was not going to say no to that. So went back up to Albany after being there for a couple of days, and met Ian up there, and that was just honestly one of the best experiences of my life. I would say that may sound cheesy, may sound dramatic, but I think what some people may not know is that I actually I've always grown up like with Iona. My father went here, his uncle went here, and my dad's always been a big Iona basketball fan. So like I've been going to Iona basketball games, often since I was a kid. And so to be up there for the championship game and being able to be on the air was really just an experience like no other. It was a lot of fun. I was sweating a lot just because it was very hot in the arena, and it was a close game for a while. And then down the stretch, obviously Iona pulled away, but it was an experience like no other, and I was just very, very grateful for that opportunity.
Yeah, and how awesome was it when you hear the next day, oh, like my call got played on Boomer and Gio, or it got played on Joe and Evan's show on WFAN?
So fun fact, as I'm leaving the Times Union Center, Jonathan Stanko, who he did the call back in 2018, and he was like, hey, make sure you have WFAN on the radio on the drive home, because we're going to send them the sound. They may play it. So I was like, okay, and had the sound on, and I believe it was the 2 a.m. sports update was the first time they played it. And I remember I was in my car waiting for it, and then they played it, and that was just really, you can't even put it into words. As somebody, I was just 19 at the time, hearing my voice on WFEN was very cool. And then when I woke up to a flurry of text messages from friends, family, and just the sound from Boomer and Gio. That was a very cool stretch of time in my life, I will say that.
Yeah, it was true, and you gotten a lot out of this. So for nobody's saying they have to go on the air like you have, but what's your message to the students out there saying, you know what, maybe should I go help out with the game? Should I go help out? What would you tell them?
I would say just send an email or talk to somebody. I think we're always looking for people to help out, and I think just the experience of being involved and being on a different side of games, especially as we move deeper and deeper into basketball season, to be on that sort of behind the scenes side of things is very interesting. It's very unique, and I think Iona, there's not many other places like this where you get an opportunity to be as involved with broadcasts like these. These are ESPN broadcasts. These are going on ESPN3, ESPN Plus. These are quality broadcasts, and I think to be able to be involved and be on, again, the behind-the-scenes side of things is very cool. So if anybody's looking to get involved, I think, like it's very easy. Send an email, talk to somebody, and they'll, we'll help you out because we're always looking for people to help out.
Heck, you can walk right into the athletics office and talk to John Stanko or Jack Clark.
Absolutely.
They will happily take more help because it's a lot of fun. And also, like, that people don't realize, like, that sort of little broadcast crew becomes a unique little group. Like, there's a group basically carried over from last year of, like, people who did at the end of last year came back this year. And, like, it's a little familiarity you get to build up. Like, oh, I know some people through this as opposed to, like, my classes or, like, work. Like, it's a new little group you can find yourself in.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, just thinking back to, the November 10th, like, between, you, myself, Ian, Aiden Callahan, Garrett Murray, we were all just kind of hanging around the truck after the game just talking. And that's something that I think we've seen happen a lot this season. And I think that there's just a different camaraderie between us all. And, I hope that it can extend to everybody else who's helping out with the broadcast as well.
All right. Well, this is a great conversation, Austin. Thanks for stopping by, taking time to appear on the Iona Athletics podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Mike. Enjoyed it.